today, folks? Hope everyone's doing well. Hope their weekend was good. So I've got an interesting one today. So a few days ago, in my political behavior class, we were talking about the difference between a living constitution and basically a set in stone constitution, or a constitution that should be interpreted in a originalistic way or in a textualist way, which is famously coined by the late Scalia, Justice Antonin Scalia. So let's go through this a little bit. So basically, a living constitution, and then I'll get to what a student said and what I said before then. And if we had more time in class, I would have refuted it even more. So a living constitution is basically one that evolves with the time. It's supposed to adapt to basically cultural norms of the time and adapt to basically public opinion. And it's supposed to do this without the formal amendment process. Now, that's dangerous. The reason why that's dangerous and why I view the Constitution in a originalistic way or textualist way, they're both very similar. Originalism and textualism, they're slightly different. However, the reason why a living constitution is dangerous and why it's so popular to the left, and of course the kid that was talking to me is, I believe, either a member or the head of the Democratic Party at the Student Democratic Party at my college. So the reason why it's so dangerous is because when you were able to change the Constitution without formally amending it, which is a very tough process, which you need 2/3 state legislatures to want to amend. There's so many things that you have to steps you have to go through to amend the Constitution, because the founding fathers made it hard so that you couldn't amend it. And what's dangerous about it is that when you were able to just change the Constitution without formally amending it, without getting really the consent of the states, I'm going to look up something real quick. Then what that means is it just means that the opinions of the popular mass are what really are driving the laws of the country, and even the rights of the country, since the Constitution is what holds our rights away from the government. And basically, what I did to refute this living document, or one thing I used to refute this living document theory in class, was I actually quoted the I Have a Dream, a part of the I Have a Dream speech by Dr. Martin Luther King. So I quoted this part. I said, "In a sense, we've come to our nation's capital to cash a check. When the architects of a republic wrote the magnificent words of the Constitution in the Declaration of Independence, they were signing a promissory note to which every American was to fall heir. This note was a promise that all men, yes, black men as well as white men, would be guaranteed the unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." So even Dr. Martin Luther King, he's not even asking for an amendment. Now, was that in the back of his mind? I don't know. But what's so crazy here is that he's not saying the Constitution is flawed. In fact, he's saying the Constitution is a great document, but that the rights at the time were not promised to black people and to maybe some other people. But what's interesting is that those on the left that fight and argue for and support a living document, they always say, our country was founded by white, aristocratic, Anglo-Saxon males, right? Yet they find no proof of them only wanting white men to vote in the Constitution. The Constitution never said women can't vote. The Constitution never said black people can't vote. In fact, most of the founding fathers were abolitionists. If you actually want to look at the letters between Paine, who was arguably an atheist, even he believed in the Anglo-Saxon mindset of, hey, slavery is wrong. Benjamin Franklin, absolute abolitionist. So was Thomas Jefferson. So was Washington. Adams. They were all strong abolitionists, but they knew they couldn't do anything at the time. They knew at the time of the founding of the Constitution that the country, especially the Southern states, which they needed in order to create a successful country, would not join. They wouldn't. It was too tied into slavery with their economics, and of course racial factors were huge in that, of course. But they knew at the time that they could not end slavery at the moment of the Constitution. But they specifically did not put these words that only white men can vote or black men can't vote. They didn't put them in there because that's not what they believed, that's not what they wanted. And they knew that people would change, and they knew that black people and others that maybe were oppressed at the time just due to cultural norms, which was not anything, by the way, specific to America. They knew that those would change and that they would use the Constitution in order to say, hey, we have these rights too. They knew that. The Founding Fathers were very specific in the things they put in the Constitution, which is why with the 10th Amendment, they said everything else, which can be a general statement, but what they're saying is everything else that doesn't have to do with the federal government, which they've laid out every power that the federal government should have, everything else that doesn't have to do with that should go to the states. Everything else. And the federal government, time and time and time again, as we see with independent regulatory commissions, as I've made videos about that, and now growing that, becoming the fourth branch, in bureaucracy, and everything. We see them overstepping all the time. It's because it's living document theory. And another thing, I put living document equals realism. The reason why living document, so realism, I think I might have said it before, realism is basically the idea in jurisprudence that a judge interprets maybe a case, or more specifically the Constitution, the way that they see fit. Which is crazy. Which is why you have now Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who says that we should get rid of the Electoral College. That's why you have crazy people like Breyer and Sotomayor on the Supreme Court, who think that their opinion should basically their opinions or what they feel is right should overrule what the Constitution says. So I'll put gay marriage for an example. Whether you agree with it or not, I really don't care. But the fact of the matter is that it was passed unconstitutionally. Like, should have gone to the states. If one state doesn't want gay marriage, another one does, then fine, so be it. That's what we've done with weed, and that's what we've done with several other things throughout our history as well. You should not force, because now, of course, with gay marriage, now when you have gay marriage, that it's illegal, now you can't have store owners saying, well, what if we're Christian, we just don't morally feel like we should do this? Well, now that might trump religious rights. And religious rights were arguably the most important right in the First Amendment back in the day. Or, of course, free speech is I mean, everything in the First Amendment is very important, but even Thomas Jefferson wrote that the freedom of religion is such a valuable right to have. And if we lose that, because with that comes morality, and really was kind of the first political institution of our country, no matter what side of the aisle you sat on, if we lose that, then we really lose a fabric of America, or really lose the fabric of America and the Judeo-Christian rights for which our founding fathers created our country upon. So obviously, and then a set in stone constitution, it's meant to be amended. But we wanted case law. Now people make the case, like the student in class. The student in class actually took my words and said that, well, look, no, actually, the fact that we changed the Constitution shows that or the fact that the norms changed and that the Constitution changed with the cultural norms at the time shows that's a living document. No, that's absolutely dumb. A, we amended it, so that's wrong because the Constitution allows for amendment, and B, it's because when it comes to common law, what we're supposed to have is common law is supposed to be hand in hand with the Constitution. So you can have common law, of course, that comes with cell phones, cars, everything else. That's why boating is a right and driving is a privilege. Because of common law, because of these new technological advances and even cultural norms that have changed. But the thing about common law is they're not supposed to go against your rights as a person, your rights as an individual. They're not supposed to do that. So if you have a cell phone, the government can't come in and say you're not allowed to call this person just because cell phones weren't around in the 1700s. Of course not. Because it's your right to use a cell phone to call someone else. It's like the government doesn't have the right to tell you that you're not allowed to write with a pen or write with a pencil because the things that didn't exist back in the day. A mechanical pen. So what's crazy is how people mix this up, and students mix this up, and we have teachers like my professor, basically advocating for a living document. Is the Constitution able to change? Yes, it was meant to change. Or at least it was open for amending, but it wasn't meant, for example, the Bill of Rights to change. You can't touch the Bill of Rights. Now, I'm sure if the left had the power to at some point, they could, but basically speaking. And to just summarize all of it, a living document is dangerous because pretty much it just opens up for the opinion of a judge. And judges, even judges will not, a leftist judge will never adhere to the Constitution. Would never adhere to the Constitution in the sense of, if they disagree with X, if they think gay marriage should be alright, even though it goes against constitutional processes, then they're going to say that gay marriage is constitutionally right for everyone. Okay, that's wrong. They will go with their opinion. They don't care. They want a living document. They want to be able to change it so that they can interpret the Constitution in their own way. And that's why originalists want the Constitution interpreted the way of the Founding Fathers. They're not saying that common law can't change. They're not saying that all people don't have rights. Of course they do. Because the Founding Fathers allowed for the Constitution to be amended and allowed for the Constitution and didn't put certain things in the Constitution, like only white men can vote, or women can't vote, or black people can never vote, or this or that, or whatever you want to say. It's an absolute sham. Just because the Constitution can be amended does not mean it's a living Constitution. That's the whole point, and that's the reason why amending the Constitution is so hard. And just for y'all that don't know how the Constitution is amended, I put it out right here, just so I wouldn't misspeak. Altering the Constitution consists of proposing an amendment, of course, and it has to be ratified, of course, after you get enough support for it. So amendments may be proposed either by the Congress with a 2/3 vote in the House of the Representatives and the Senate, or by a convention of states called for by 2/3 of state legislatures. Like I said. So, folks, just realize, just because the Constitution, once again, can be changed, does not mean it's a living Constitution. Okay, it's a set-in-stone document, but it should be amended. And common law, which also can fall into, which all too easily nowadays, as we see, falls into liberal judges who don't believe in the set-in-stone Constitution, who believe it should just change due to their opinion. Common law is very much vulnerable to realism and into leftism. But we need to realize that the only thing that's stopping common law from really letting the left just take over the judiciary of and the legislative processes of America, which they have done well so far, is the Constitution. Because at some point, the Constitution is there to stop them and say, you can't do this. I don't care what your opinion is, common law or not. Common law has to walk hand in hand with the Constitution. No matter what the cultural norms are, no matter what the public opinions are. It has to be supported by the Constitution. Civil rights, supported by the Constitution. Women's right to vote, supported by the Constitution. Okay? And then states voting for gay marriage, supported by the Constitution. Just for an example. So folks, thank you so much. I hope you found this video interesting. And I hope it just opens your eyes a little more to when a professor or a student advocates for a living document Constitution. Either they don't know what they're talking about, or they do, and that's even scarier, because that means that they're just trying to mislead you and trying to misguide you. So thank you so much, folks. I hope you like this video. I'll see you next time. My name is Wyatt, and I'm the College Conservative.